Hi everyone. Paul and I, welcome back to the set review. Paul and I were recording all of it, but we found that we lost the footage after Red, so I have to redo these on my own. So it'll just be me from here on out, I'm afraid. But let us go with the green cards in Lorwyn Eclipsed. So the first card we have here is Assert Perfection. It's 2 mana green common. Um, +1/+0 and bite. This card is not very good. You have to play it sometimes, but if you can get removal spells in your other color, that would be preferable. Because bite effects have a few problems. The first is that you don't always have a creature, but sometimes you do have a creature, uh, and they have an instant speed removal spell to get a 2-for-1. And that's a thing that you really need to avoid. And the usual way to avoid that is by playing them when your opponent taps out, but that's much harder to do with this since it's a sorcery. So I think this is a lot worse than the red bite, unfortunately. But you still may need it in some decks if you don't have other removal. Next we have a Mythic Aurora Awakener, which is a 7 mana 7/7 trample. When it enters, you look at the top X permanent cards, so you'll just keep going past any non-permanents, equal to the number of colors among permanents you control, and then you put the permanents in for free. This is really nice. It's a bit like, reminds me of the Teamer Ultimatum from Ikoria, which saw some play in Standard. I think this is obviously amazing in Vivid. Do note that this will sometimes hit lands, which is a shame, but so you will need to have more than just a few. You'll need a few vivid colors in order to make sure that you have a good chance of hitting non-lands. But if you can do that, I think this card could be a good top end for a multicolor ramp decks in the same way that the Teamer Ultimatum was. So yeah, I like it. And then I think it's great in Vivid decks and Limited. It's the best card you can have, honestly. Next we have Bloom Tender. It's a reprint. It's a mythic for some reason. It's a 2 mana 1/1 Vivid make mana. This card's not that good. I know it's pretty popular in Commander, but I don't even know if I don't think it saw that much competitive constructed play in Shadowmoor Standard, and I don't see why it would now. It's really fragile and takes and requires setup, and it's just usually in constructed you want your mana creatures to cost 1 and not 2. Is the problem with this. Limited, it's playable in Vivid decks, I think, or even just in Elf decks. I think it's fine, but it's nothing special. But this will make it cheaper for a commander, which is the main purpose. Still, I just don't know why it's a mythic. It just isn't that strong, but whatever. Next, we have a good card, Blossoming Defense. It's an instant, 1 green for +2/+2 and hexproof until end of turn. Saw a lot of standard play the first time it was in standard in Kaladesh. Now this is also a great trick in limited, by the way. It's a 1 mana trick for a pretty good boost in hexproof, so those are always good in limited. 1 mana tricks are. And this one is competing with Snakeskin Veil in Standard. It'll be interesting to see which is better, whether a temporary +2/+2 or a permanent +1/+1 is better. So keep an eye on that. But this card definitely has a shot. Next we have Bristlebane Battler. It's a rare 2 mana Kithkin with Trample and Ward 2. Enters with 5 -1/-1 counters. And when creatures enter, you take off a counter. This card's close to a bomb in limited in Kithkin decks or elf decks, honestly. I think any green deck wants this in limited. And probably, I'd say it probably starts too small to be playable in standard, though, unfortunately. Although the Warrid does give it a chance, maybe. Next up is another Kithkin, Bristlebane Outrider for 4. It's an uncommon that can't be blocked by creatures with power 2 or less. And as long as you played another creature this turn, it gets +2/+0. So very often this will just be a difficult to block 4 mana 5/5. Good finisher for Kithkin decks. I will say that there's a good chance you'll have emptied your hand by the time you play this, so you'll only be pumping it on turns where you have drawn another creature off the top, since Kithkin decks are so low curve, but I think it's still good in those decks. Certainly less exciting in elf decks because those decks aren't as aggressive, and this is, even though it costs 4, it's a pretty aggressive card. Still cool though. Celestial Reunion, X in green. As an additional cost to cast it, you may choose a creature type and behold 2 creatures of that type. Search for a creature card with mana value X or less, reveal it, put it into your hand. And if this spell's additional cost was paid and the revealed card is of the chosen type, you put that card onto the battlefield instead of putting it into your hand. So this card is not good. It's unplayable and limited. It's overcosted and will often not be able to put the thing into play, in which case it's super overcosted. This is my main point is this is much worse than Green Sun Zenith. Furthermore, there's no Dryad tribal deck in any format as far as I know, and that is one of the main cards that makes Green Sun Zenith good, is Dryad Arbor, because it gives a floor to a card and then it's all up from there, whereas this has the floor of doing nothing for cheap. So I think this card's bad. Even in standard where there is no Green Sun Zenith, I think the harmonized one from Tarkir Dragonstorm is better than this, even though it costs 1 more. Because you just are very... Behold 2 creatures of the same type as the one you're getting basically means you can't get Badger Mole with this because you're not playing a Badger or Mole tribal deck, which is the thing that you want to get. And I just don't think elves are going to be good enough. Like, I guess they could play this if they're good, but I don't think they will be. Sorry. Champions of the Perfect. 4 mana 6/6. It's an additional cost to cast it. You behold an elf and exile it. And whenever you cast a creature spell, you draw a card, and you get the card back to your hand when it leaves. This card is a bit... It's a bomb in limited. Let's start there. This is pretty hard to beat if you untap with it in limited. If you draw even a single card, it's going to win you the game. Problem is that in standard elf decks, if you have a card with this effect, you don't care as much about it being big as you do about the effect. And the card Beast Whisperer ended up not being as good as it looked, which didn't require you to champion an elf, even though it was just, I think, a 3/4. I think you'd still prefer that, and that I played it in a standard elf deck actually during that time, but this card just isn't quite good enough. it is worse at the thing that Beast Whisperer does, and I don't think you care that much in a deck like this how big it is. So unfortunately, I don't think this card's good enough for standard. Chomping Changeling, this card's good enough for standard. This card's amazing. It's a 3 mana Changeling, 1/2, and when it enters, you disenchant. This, every elves love the card Reclamation Sage. And now every other tribe has Reclamation Sage as well. It's a little worse as a 1/2 than a 2/1, harder to trade off, but still, this, with all the Caverns of Souls and effects like that, also, you can play this in Goblins, I think, even if it's your only green card. It's just so good. Um, One of the best uncommons for standard in the set. Limited, there are some bombs against which you'll need to side this in. And if you really want to be all of the same tribe, you might need to play this as well. But usually you don't play this main deck in limited, but you will need to bring it in if they have like that white kin binding, the white enchantment. Or if they have a lot of enchantment based removal, you could bring it in as well. I don't hate it in limited, but I think it's a sideboard card. A good one though. Crossroads Watcher, another Kithkin, 3 mana, 3/3 trample. When another creature enters, it gets +1/+0. Card's great for Kithkin decks. Another just great aggressively costed Kithkin. I foresee that deck being one of the better archetypes in this limited format. It was good. There's a very similar card, I think, in Foundations that was pretty good, even though green wasn't that good in this set, and green looks a lot more supported here. So I expect this to be a good card. Dawn's Light Archer, 3 mana, flash, reach, 4/2. This card is fine. It's nice in the elf deck because it helps you get elves into your graveyard since it's so easy to trade. Um, Otherwise, not that good though. Flash, I mean, you aren't going to splash this in a fairy deck, even though it has flash, so yeah. Still good though. I guess it's okay against fairy decks, right? Because it has reach. Not great still, like, it trades with a 2-drop is the problem. And most of the flyers in this set are small, so it doesn't trade well with them as a 4/2. Dundulan Weaver, another excellent Kithkin. It's a 2/1, and when it enters, if you control 3 or more creatures, return a permanent card from your graveyard to your hand. Amazing limited card. I think you play it in Elves or Kithkin. And constructed might be too hard to rely too hard reliably to ensure you have enough creatures to use this. So I don't think it's good enough for standard, but in draft it's great. Formidable Speaker, the World Championship card. So jarring seeing these people whose faces just look like complete nerds on these cards, you know? Like, why does this elf look like a nerd? Who knows? But he does, and as do all World Championship cards. Anyhow, it's a 3 mana 2/4. When it enters, you can discard a card and search for a creature, put it into your hand, then shuffle. And then you can pay 1 and tap to untap another permanent. Probably a good card for the standard Reanimator decks, where the reanimation spell is a creature that copies something from a graveyard. So you can play this, discard the reanimation target, and then get the reanimation creature. And then in Pioneer, the untap ability is probably worse than Kiora for Mono Green Devotion, but I'm sure that there will be a few times that this card finds a place in Standard. And limited, it's just well costed. No single thing about it is great, but every little thing it does adds up to be a pretty good card for what you're paying in draft. So I like it there too. Guilt Leaf's Embrace. 3 mana, flash, enchant creature. Yeah, enters enchanted creature, gains trample and indestructible until end of turn, and it gives +2/+0. Very bad card. It costs too much for a trick, and the only part of it that it leaves behind is the +2/+0, which your opponent can pretty easily trade with. So I don't like this card at all in any format. I don't think you should play it. Great Forest Druid, 2 mana, 0/4, add 1 mana of any color. It's a good card for the Vivid decks in draft. It also wears blight counters pretty well. Not every deck will play this, but there are some that will. Luminolisk, 4 mana, 2/4 Death Touch. When it enters, you gain life for Vivid. Great card for the Vivid decks. It'll this keeps you alive better than basically anything else to get to the late game, which is where you want to be with this deck. So I like it a lot. And I think it's probably playable in Elves as well. Lies the Lana Dignitary. It's the Elf Behold card. It's a 2 mana uncommon 2/3 elf. And you have to Beholder pay 2 to cast it. Then it can tap for 2 green, but only if there is an elf in your graveyard. I think this card sucks, and I'm very disappointed that they added that last stipulation of needing an elf in your graveyard, because I think it would be perfectly fair without that stipulation, but with it, it's just pretty bad. Still playable and limited if you have a lot of elves, but unfortunately, that second restriction means that I don't think you can play this in standard. Lies Alana Informant, 2 mana, 3/1 Wary Thespian. When it enters or dies, you surveil 1. This is amazing in Elves. Wary Thespian has been in a lot of sets and it's always been good, and I think it'll be especially good in this set since it does everything you want in terms of getting Elves into your graveyard. This may end up being the best green common, so watch out for it. It's really good. Midnight Tilling. 2 mana instant, mill 4, return a permanent from among them, your graveyard to your hand. Probably okay in very dedicated elf limited decks. Standard, like, Overlord of the Baelmerk exists, which is better than this. And even in Insidious Roots decks, since this can get Insidious Roots, Cash Grab exists, which will sometimes make food tokens. So I think it's just worse than the alternatives in Standard. But playable in a very, very dedicated graveyard deck in Limited. Mist Meadow Council, another amazing Kithkin common. Costs 1 less to cast if you control a Kithkin. When it enters, draw a card. A bit hesitant about this card because while it was great in its format, the camels from Dragonstorm weren't quite as good as they looked, although they were very good, and I expect this to be very good as well. Yeah, Kithkin looking really good. Moon Vigil Adherence. 4 mana, 0/0 trample. When it gets +1/+1 for each creature you have and each one in your graveyard. It's giant. You can play it in really any deck, but it's at its best in Elves since that's a mill deck. But it's just enormous and has trample, and I think in limited for 4 mana that's quite good. So this is a good card. All right. Morkant's Eyes. So 2 mana, tribal enchantment for elves. Beginning of your upkeep, you surveil 1. You can pay 6 and sacrifice it to make a bunch of elf tokens for the number of elves in your graveyard. It's good in limited. Probably not good enough for constructed, but I don't. It's very slow, so you probably only want one of these. But I do think you want that one if you're playing elves in this format. So I don't hate it, even though it is slow. And also, it's an elf, so when you sacrifice it, it will be counted as one of the elves. Next, we have Mutable Explorer, which is a 3 mana 1/1 that makes a tap Mutavault token. Great limited card. It's like a creature and a creature, but one of the creatures is also a land. And every tribe, probably playable in standard tribal decks as well. I don't hate it, but I do think that for standard, the Reclamation Sage one is actually better than this. But this is still quite good. Nice art. Pitiless Fists. 4 mana aura, +2/+2, fight. This is definitely better than the last aura we looked at in green. It's um again, if they have an instant speed removal spell, you're in trouble. But if they don't, and you pump your creature and kill their creature, that is pretty nice. So as long as you can time this cautiously, it's good. Prisma Basher. 6 mana, 6/6, elemental with trample. When it enters, up to X target creatures you control get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is the number of colors among permanents you control. This is actually not as good in Vivid decks as it is as top end for Kithkin and Elf decks. It doesn't give trample, but again, it could make for some pretty uncomfortable blocks for your opponent, which is great. So I think you would like to have one of these in a Kithkin or Elf deck in order to as your top end. And I think it's playable in Vivid decks, but not that exciting. Prismatic Undercurrents for mana enchantment. When it enters, search for X basic lands for a basic land for each color among your permanents. Put them in your hand, and then you can play an additional land every turn. Maisie isn't here to tell me if this is good, but I'm inclined to think it's fine because it does the additional land thing does mean you get the first one immediately, untapped. And it's fixing for the Vivid deck. It's a green permanent that stays in play, counting towards Vivid, so I think it is pretty good in that deck, but only in that deck. Pummeler for Hire. Great uncommon. 5 mana, 4/4 Vigilance Reach, Ward 2. When it enters, you gain life equal to the greatest power among giants you control. This card's awesome. The perfect stabilizer. Good keyword abilities, gains life, not horrible rate. Think that it's good, obviously, with the double strike giant, as all giants are. And I look forward to playing giants in this limited set. I think red green might be better than red white for giants, but we'll see. Safe Rate Cavalry. 4 mana, 4/4, can't be blocked by more than one creature. 5 mana, target elf you control gets +2/+2. So it's definitely filler, but you should note that these kinds of onboard tricks are not things that they often let you have anymore. So the threat of activation for this thing is real. Again, the elves in the set don't make that much mana, so you don't want this kind of below rate mana sink as much. I think it's still playable if you need it, but it's certainly filler. Sapling Nursery, 8 mana, affinity for forests. When a land you control enters, you get a tree folk token. You can pay 2, exile it, and give your forests and tree folk indestructible until end of turn. That last ability isn't very good. The affinity and landfall are pretty good though. I think you would want to be pretty heavy green to play this card in limited to make sure that you don't have to pay too much for it, but it is a good finisher. I think it's too slow for constructed. One problem with cards like this, these expensive landfall payoffs, is you need to play your lands first to cast them, which is a shame. But in limited, I think it's still quite good if you have mostly forest in your deck or among your lands. Selfless Safe Right, 5 mana, 4/2, flash, convoke. When it enters, choose a creature type. Other permanents you control of that type gain hexproof and indestructible. This card's awful. Um, maybe I think it's playable in limited, but it isn't great and totally unplayable in standard. It just is too much mana for a 4/2. You will usually want to do this while attacking, which makes the convoke kind of bad since your creatures can't convoke it while they're attacking unless they have vigilance. So I don't like it at all. Yeah, I'm sorry. Shimmer Wild's Growth. Uh, 2 mana enchant land when it enters. Choose a color. It makes the land the chosen color and makes the land add 1 extra mana. Perfect for Vivid decks. It's 2 uh, colors, because green and then whatever you choose, and it makes more mana to fix and ramp. This is amazing in that deck. Not that good elsewhere, but great in that deck. Could see play in standard if there's a really dedicated ramp deck, I suppose. Spry and Mighty. This card is a bomb. 5 mana, choose 2 creatures, draw X cards, and give them +X/+X and trample, where X is the difference in their power. This will often win the game when you cast it. Now, you choose the targets on resolution so they can't mess it up by killing one of them. Not that that would even make much difference. But if you only have 2 creatures and you cast this and they kill one of them, it won't do anything, so be careful of that. But otherwise, the card is going to kill your opponent, draw you a million cards. Great card in limited. Not playable in standard. Surly Farmer. Another pretty good Kithkin. 2 mana 2/2. Tap to give a creature +1/+1 and vigilance as a sorcery. Sorry, Surly Farrier. Keep forgetting. It has best art in the set probably. Wow, look at that. But yeah, it's filler for Kithkin decks certainly, but it's very good filler. And having all these pretty good on rate filler cards leads me to think that deck will be good. Tend the Sprigs. 3 mana, search for a basic land, then shuffle. Then if you have 7 or more lands or tree folk, create a 3/4 green tree folk creature token with reach. Playable, I think. Maybe okay in the Vivid deck. We'll have to. This one I will have to check out with Maisie because I'm not sure if this is good enough for Vivid. If you have an unusually high number of tree folk in your deck, I will say that this gets a lot better and maybe more playable if you can get like 5 lands and 2 tree folk. because it really sucks if you don't get the token. It's just so overcosted. So we'll have to see about this one. Unplayable in standard. Thought Weft Charge. 2 mana, instant. Target creature gets +3/+3 until end of turn. If a creature entered under your control this turn, you can draw a card. Good limited card. It'll be, if you're good, you'll be able to see this coming because your opponent will play a creature pre-combat and then make a suspect looking attack. If you're cool, you can do that even when you don't have this if you know your opponent is aware of this card. So that's cool. Very bluffable, but also very callable. So this card gets better when you don't have it and you just pretend to have it. Is my evaluation of this card. But yeah, that's odd, but I think it's the truth. Tristan, Callous Cultivator. The elf, double-faced rare. It's a 3 mana, 3/4. And when it enters, you mill 3. Then if there's an elf in your graveyard, you gain 2. At the beginning of your first main phase, pay a black to transform into one that does the same thing except it drains and can flip back for a green. This one's good. It's very well statted. Just the 3/4 death touch for 3 can gain life, mills you. Think that if there is a graveyard elf deck in the standard, this will end up being one of the better ones. Still think the Merfolk's better, but this one is close. And that's the elf is a bomb in limited. Maybe not a bomb, but quite good. Unforgiving Aim, 3 mana instant. Destroy a flyer, enchantment, or make an elf. Sideboard card in limited. Very, very much a filler card. Kind of don't want it in elf decks because it isn't an elf in your graveyard. So yeah, but sometimes they will have flyers and enchantments you need to destroy, so you will need it. 3 mana, 4/2, must be blocked to Fable. When it attacks, another elf you control gets +2/+1. Very, very well statted limited card. It will trade, which is what elves want to do, then it'll make another elf hurt them, which is what every deck wants to do. Virulent Emissary. Green for a 1/1 Death Touch. It's a one-sided Soul Warden. This is amazing. Um, this is just a great card. In limited, you play it every time. Just gains life, keeps you alive, and also trades off to fill your graveyard with elves. And then in standard, like if you're playing an elf deck and you're against an aggro deck, you can sideboard this in. If there's some kind of green-white life gain deck in standard, this would be in it as well, although I don't know if it's enough reason for such a deck to play green by itself. Then Wildvine Pummeler, 7 mana, costs less for Vivid, 6/5 for each trample common. Um, Filler for Vivid decks, but it's good if you are really doing it with the Vivid. I don't hate it, but again, these are not the kinds of decks I play. Probably not going to play this in my signature red-green Giants deck that I will be draft forcing every draft that I see the uncommon. But I might actually. Trample Double Strike is pretty good, and if you can get it down to get 2, it's 5. The card's pretty good, actually. I think I like it quite a bit. But still, it's a card you'll get pretty late in the draft, so you don't need to take it highly. And you don't want too many of them since they're expensive. Alright, that's all of the green cards. Thanks everyone. Stay tuned for multicolor and colorless.